So I'm Ron Tester. I'm a business coach, and I'm here with Susan Pullen.
Hi.
And today we are going to be talking about the ambivalence that coaches and healers have when they are thinking about building their practice. All right. So, Susan, give us a little bit of background about you.
So, a little background on me. I have been a coach for over 20 years, and I'm a healing facilitator. I help people get through the really sticky points so they can have a breakthrough in their lives and their life can be easier.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. And I'm a business coach. I help primarily small businesses to grow, and I help the owners to figure out how to grow and get their life back. So that's what I really focus on. And we are talking today because we both have an interest in helping coaches and healers to grow their practices, right? And one of the reasons that we find that people are not growing their practices is they have some ambivalence about growing a business that does the work of coaching or healing. Susan, tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think that this is something that is kind of particular to those of us who think about going into a business because what we really want to be doing is supporting people and assisting them in their growth and development as a person. And so it's different from like an entrepreneur who starts a business because, they want to see how much money they can make with it, or they want to grow the business so they can sell it, or, they have that kind of a mindset where it's like the business is an asset, it's a project, but it's not necessarily part of their life purpose or their something that's really close to their heart, where it's like, I'm starting this thing, but it feels like part of me. It's part of who I am. And so it feels kind of vulnerable. And I think it brings up a lot of fears for people when we start thinking about, I'm going to make money or support myself through doing this work that I feel really committed to. And it's that commitment that's driving people rather than the starting a business part.
Right. It's funny that you say that because I'm a physical therapist by training. And when I started my first business, it was a home health agency. And it really did come from a passion, a desire to serve. But the only way that I could do that was to go through the kind of because of the regulatory issues and the laws, et cetera. If I wanted to serve in that way, I had to build the business. So building a business wasn't an option. But for sure, I see that, a lot of folks are compelled not in the business world, they're compelled not by a mission or a passion to serve as much as it is, let's build this asset. Let's make this money machine.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think when we take that step toward, even in our mind, toward I'm gonna earn a living doing this thing that's so close and important to me, it brings up fears in a way that those other kinds of ventures don't. The it increases the pressure. I think our own internal pressure just feels scarier of like, if this is what I'm here to do, here to contribute, what if I'm not good at it? What if I fail? What if I have to give it up and go get a job as a bank teller? It's or a barista or nothing against bank tellers or baristas, but just if that's not what you feel like you're here to do. Yeah, it just feels like the stakes are really high. And I think that's one reason why people hesitate around starting a business or around really putting the effort into it and taking that real step out of a 9 to 5, maybe corporate job, but more of a structured um, job that is uh, more common in our culture.
Mm. That's interesting. It's funny. I think you're right, but I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, that the stakes are so high that what if I fail? What if this doesn't work? And that is scary, I mean, it's one thing if you, no offense to bank tellers, if you don't succeed as a bank teller, you go, whatever, but if I feel called to do something to serve my community by being a coach or a healer, then if I fail that, well, heck, what do I do now? Right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And
Interesting.
it took me a lot of years to kind of come around to the perspective of like, if this is what I'm meant to be doing, then actually, like the whole universe is going to be conspiring for my success in this.
Mm,
I actually commit to doing the thing that I'm here to do, then that's that's much more likely to work out than to not work out.
yeah. Wow. That's funny because I do see that we straddle. I mean, even in non-coaching and healing worlds, we tend to straddle, right? We want to hedge our bets. We're going to play it safe. We're going to have one foot in, one foot out. So if something goes on, and yet when we're like that, when I'm like that, I never make any progress, right? I'm still stuck, and I'm a little of this and a little bit of that, and um, very, very interesting. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And I certainly spent years in that straddling place, like you're describing, Ron, where I had a part-time job and, it paid the bills, which was great. And it had health insurance, which was great. Um, but I, I didn't really, it was like I had a toe in, or it was like part of me didn't believe it was going to work out,
Mm,
working for myself and having my sort of dream business. Part of me didn't think I could really do it, or didn't think it was possible for me to do it. And as a result of that fear, that belief, I didn't really commit to it either.
mm.
I hung back.
Right, right. It's funny when I thought about having this conversation with you, one of the things that I thought was that for some folks, they have this push-pull reaction or thought about money, right? It's like a money, we need it, we want it we need it to survive, and we want it to do other things. And yet in our society, and I think sometimes we internalize this, there's this really nasty thing about business and money and all of that. How do we reconcile that?
Yeah, I think that all those cultural stories, and sometimes it's in our family culture too, of, that money is sleazy or dirty, or you're selling yourself out, or, whatever those stories about money and business might be. And to me, I think doing some of that inner work to bring those beliefs to the surface, and to really investigate them, and is this really true or not true?
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, you and I have talked about this, but being having a business where I ask for an exchange for, an investment that people make in return for my services, my expertise, that that investment that they make actually helps them put the the effort, the time, the energy, even the belief into this is going to work for them. They're going to get something out of it because they're putting something into it, right?
Right,
I
right.
mean, the research from the like Dan Ariely, Predictably Irrational, the research on the value or how well we think something works when it's free, you or even on sale. People rated things as more effective when they paid full price for it. And I don't know why the human mind is like that, but we seem to have that quirk where when we step up and we have some skin in the game, so to speak, we also get more out of it.
Absolutely. I think investing in anything really helps us to focus. And if you invest in, a coach or a healer, it helps you to be clear, this is what it is. And when it's free, we all love free, right? But free, sometimes we don't take it as seriously. We don't do the homework, so to speak. We don't, allow the transformation to take place. What do you think about the angle? Because I was thinking about this earlier. Just business. Business feels icky to some people, and honestly, in our culture, I always think back about the movie Wall Street, Gordon Gekko. Greed is good, and all of that. And again, our culture tends to have a pretty negative. On the one hand, we idolize, the billionaire, what is it, the Forbes 400 list, or that sort of thing. And at the same time, we also really dislike what some businesses do. How do we reconcile that?
Yeah. I think sometimes those stories actually have an ancestral connection to them. Um, so sometimes when there's a story in our family history of this is a little different, but say my great grandfather built a business from scratch and then it was taken away from him through a political situation or no fault of his own, but he loses everything. um, or uh, or I have an ancestor who cheated someone else in business or who took advantage of someone else in business. Those those stories in our family history, even when we don't know them, they carry a weight in our being, in our unconscious. And so one of the things that I think is helpful is to start looking at what's the real origin of some of those thoughts and feelings that I have around business, around money, around being a healer or a coach, around being a spiritual person. What are those stories and how do they fit in the context of my family? Is there a family culture of this is sleazy or cheesy or not real somehow? Or is there a history, something in my further back in my family line that doesn't paint a pretty picture of
Hmm.
having a business, yeah,
Yeah,
or being a spiritual person, or being of service in the way that we feel called to be of service.
right. Well, I love that. That's so good. One of the things that I see with a lot of the clients that I work with, but in particular the coaches and the healers, is there is that ambivalence, and I just want to say to anyone who's listening, it's not your fault, right? I mean, we don't know about the family history a lot of times, or even if we do, we have a vague notion, but we're not necessarily aware of how it's affecting us, right? I was thinking about my own life, and my grandfather worked for, a big corporation for a long time, and then he got laid off, and then he started his own business, and it was okay, but it was a struggle, right? And so, small business equals struggle comes to mind there. And yet, when I got my training, and no one told me to think about that, or, it was like, oh, now you have your thing. So, just hang your shingle and do your thing. I think we don't realize how much baggage, seen and unseen, we bring, and how that affects us.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there's the unknown of it too. I love the story that you just shared, Ron, because I think there is often that sense of like, now I have the skill or I have the talent or the gift or however I look at it, right? I have the capacity to offer something. And so now I'm going to start a business with that. But it part of where it feels challenging is that we don't actually know how to do the business part
Right.
because that's not part of our training usually. Or if it is, it's, it's this much. So, so giving ourselves also the gift of, a great business coach or a training program, or at the very least, a community of other people who are, working some of the same things, but hopefully not people who are blocked in the same way we are.
I was
Right.
thinking the same thing, like, well,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
depends.
it's a,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's,
But, get like, uh, investing some in learning how to do that part, how to actually translate the skill and the offering and the love and the passion into something that supports me in a smooth way. It's not always something that we think about investing in.
no, it's not for sure. And, there is, again, I go back to in our society, there's a lot of, just stand on your own 2 feet and, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and, that sort of thing. And then when you add in the internet component to everything is free on the internet. So why can't I just watch enough YouTube videos or whatever it is to be able to do it? But the reality is that we need a supportive community, right? We do. Um, one of the things I was thinking about is that we need, as much as we need the business skills, we need to get our mindset right, right? I, I was talking to somebody recently, a younger person, and they said, I don't want to be, I don't ever want to be rich because I don't want to turn into a bad person. And I said, money doesn't make you good or bad. It just, it allows you to be who you are, right? So if you're a bad person, money's going to make you more bad, and we've seen a lot of that on television. But if you're a good person, then you can use that money for good. So again, it's a mindset issue, right?
Mhm.
What other kinds of mindsets do you see, or habitual thought patterns that are limiting people or keeping people ambivalent?
I think the idea, I'm not ready. I need one more piece of paper, or I need to have the level of mastery that my teacher has, or I need to do it just like them, when really it's about doing it like us, right?
Mm.
Um, so that, like, not good enough, not ready piece. I also think about, so my first business was actually a jewelry business, not diamonds or anything, but art jewelry. And and so I would do these fairs or shows. And first I would have some weeks where I would be really worried that no one would come.
Mm.
And then somewhere in there it would kind of flip, and then I would be really worried that lots of people would come and I wouldn't have enough jewelry made. So,
Mm.
and I had to laugh at myself, right? Because those are two completely contrary fears.
Right.
And yet they felt very convincing at the time.
Yeah.
But I think we do that as coaches and healers too, in terms of, like, what if no one comes, or what if someone comes,
Mm.
what if I don't have enough work, or what if I have too much work?
Yeah.
What if people have expectations? What if there's pressure and there's responsibility, and sometimes there's like a young part of us that doesn't even know that we're an adult. And you can imagine, if you went to a 6-year-old and said, hey, you have a business now where you have to pay your mortgage, and you're going to be helping people turn their lives around, that 6-year-old would be like, let me out of here. And that's what can happen in us too, is part of us is like, what? And and we forget that at the same time we're highly capable, highly resourced, created to do the work that we're doing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
those are some things I notice. What else comes up for you, Ron?
I think sometimes there's just a sense of overwhelm, right? There's so many
Mhm.
things to do. and because there's so many things to do, I don't know where to start, and not starting keeps me safe, even if it doesn't keep me happy.
Yeah.
Right. So I get that sense. When I think about the kind of the consequences of the ambivalence that some people feel about business, one of the things that comes to mind right away is, okay, the impact on that is that you don't get to do what you want to do to the extent that you want to do it. You don't have the impact. Most coaches and healers that I know, they got into it because they wanted to have an impact on people. They wanted to change people's lives and change society. That's why I got into coaching, right? That's because I wanted to change lives. I wanted to make a difference for people. If I'm not putting myself out there, and if I don't grow a business that allows me to do that, it really minimizes my impact. And all the people that need me, that I'm meant to serve, they don't have access to me because I'm over here hiding, right? So I think that is one of the big issues that comes up for people is that can help to start to shift, right? To be open to the idea of a business. It's like, okay, my why is to transform lives, to make a difference in society, and to hold on to that when business is scary. Business is, it's scary, it's overwhelming, and sometimes it's sleazy, and I don't want to be any part of that, right? There is a term that it gets thrown around a lot, of bro marketers, right? This which you could probably guess by the title. Just these people that are kind of mostly young men, and mostly kind of slick, and manipulative and that sort of thing. Nobody that I know wants to be that, right? So, but if you think marketing equals being sleazy, or sales equals being salesy, then of course you don't want to do that, because who wants to be that, right? So instead, when you think, marketing is really just sharing what you do, right? And sales is just inviting people to participate in what you do. And it can again slowly begin to change the way you think about what you do, in a way that says, okay, if I think about it like this, I can do this, and when I do this, I can have the impact that I want to have. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's so satisfying.
Yeah, it is. The other big deal for me is that if you don't build a business that does the thing that you want to do, um, there is financial insecurity, and a great sense of uncertainty. I don't know, how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know where my next customer is going to come from, or my next client. And as a result, sometimes I'll take on any work that, you can give me, right? I mean, when I first started coaching, I took on a client that I knew wasn't right for me, but he was a client and he had a checkbook, and I was like, okay, sure, I can do that. While it was my skill set, just interpersonally, it wasn't a good fit, and so we struggled, right? Because I had expectations, like, you will send me the thing you said you were going to send me, and he had expectations like, you know don't bother him, right? And so it was this funny sort of thing. Eventually, we parted ways, and as friendly a terms as we could. But you know, without a sense of building a business, if I'm just, if I'm financially uncertain, if I'm on shaky ground, it's really hard to build a business that you love, to make the kind of impact you want to make, because, man, I got to buy food, right? I
Mhm.
got to pay the rent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I think that undermines our confidence too. When we take any job we can get, even when it's not a good fit, and not really, within our zone of genius, or whatever you want to call that, or when the person's not a right fit, then it can drain us
Mhm.
and take the fun out of it, and then we're not as present and available as we could be for the people that we really are here to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let me ask you, how do you know if you should move forward, or if you should quit? How do you know if you should, okay, I feel like I want to coach, I feel like I want to have an impact like this, but I don't know. I mean, and I'm a little bit scared, or a lot scared, and it doesn't seem to be working. Maybe I've got one foot in, one foot out, that sort of thing. How do you know whether to proceed or to just to call it a day?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Ron. It's such a good question. I think one of my thoughts is I- I'm all about flexibility and choice and freedom, right? That we should have ideally the flexibility to follow what feels right for us. But if I'm really caught in fear or, story about how having a business is bad, making a lot of money is bad, selling things is bad, right? If I'm caught in that, then I don't have full access to choice and to really feel into what intuitively feels right to me here, right?
Mhm.
Our life purpose doesn't have to be a job, doesn't have to be part of our work. It could be a hobby, it could be something we contribute in a different way. But I think it's really hard to discern that when we're just clouded with fear.
Mhm.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, I really think that if someone is at a point where they're thinking, should I, shouldn't I? Um, I think two things. On the one hand, listening to what's going on inside you, your intuition, your thoughts, the way your body feels, that sort of thing. But I'm also a huge fan of getting an outside opinion, having
Mm.
somebody, and it doesn't have to be you or me, right? It doesn't have to
Mhm,
be,
mhm,
but to have somebody with some perspective, ideally somebody who has done something like what you want to do, right? Because, when I talk to my grocer about starting a coaching business, they were nice and all, but they don't really get it, right? They don't know what it's like to do that. But when I talk to other coaches about my coaching business, they all get it. And they can say, you're on the right track, you're on the wrong track, quit while you're ahead, or whatever. But at least they have some perspective and experience that I can lean into. So I do think we need to listen to our bodies, listen to our hearts, and ultimately we have to make decisions that align with that. And it's super helpful to get some perspective from somebody else who ideally has been where you want to go, so they can say, oh, it's just one or two tweaks away from happening, or, based on what I'm hearing, I think that, maybe you shouldn't, right? It's funny, a lot of times in my coaching practice, when I have a talk with somebody who is considering starting a business, 9 times out of 10-ish, I'm telling them all the reasons they shouldn't, right?
mm,
Because in our society, and particularly in some pockets of our society, we glorify
mm,
entrepreneurship. We glorify, starting your own thing and doing your own thing. And for some people, it's magnificent. It's absolutely the right thing to do. But for some people, it's not, and that's okay, right? Just because you don't start your own business doesn't mean that you're not a rock star in life, and you have nothing to contribute, right? I mean, most people don't start their own business, and they do quite well, right? That's
mhm,
that's, that's the way it works. So there's no shame in saying, I thought about that, but it just isn't for me, right? All that being said, again, if you feel a calling and if you feel like you're led to move in a certain direction, I think move in that direction, listen to your body, and if you're thinking about quitting, get some help, talk to somebody.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I love that advice, Ron. That really resonates for me. And I love that you said, talk to someone who's in the field or who's working on doing something similar to what you're thinking about. Even sort of in the neighborhood would be helpful. Um, Not like your childhood best friend or the person who's known you since you were 5 or or longer, who, in their mind, I'm little Susie and and so this is a crazy idea. Uh, and you're going to charge what,
Right.
Um, yeah, but having that wisdom also of who you're going to listen to get that
Mhm.
perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So good, good. Any other things you'd like to discuss about being ambivalent and starting a business? There's obviously a nearly infinite amount to talk about, but I think maybe we should wrap it up.
I think that feels great. Yeah. Thanks so much for the conversation.
Okay, good. If you would like to talk to us and you have questions about your own practice, growing your practice, etc., Susan and I have a program called the Authentic Offer Method that helps coaches and healers to get clear on who they are, who their ideal customer is, what their ideal customer wants, and then to make offers that are in the intersection there so that it feels authentic. There's nothing sleazy about it or salesy. It's just a good way to talk to people and share what you do. So if you'd like more information about that, you can email us hello@holisticbizgrowth.com, or you can go to our website, which is holisticbizgrowth.com.
Thanks for listening.
All right, thanks.